Wyoming.
My name's Sarah Rickgauer. I'm with Wyoming Department of Transportation. This picture just kind of shows we've got 5 districts across the entire state. Yellowstone is up in the corner, doesn't really count. But the 5 districts incorporate the bottom, which is part of Cheyenne. District 2 is part of Casper. 3 is the whole west side of the state. District 4 is up north, and District 5 is kind of in the basin area. We use Pathway Services. They collect a lot of our condition data across the state. We've contracted with them for quite a few years. And so we do all of our interstates every year, the non-interstate NHS every other year, and then every 3rd year we collect the non-NHS routes. So just a little bit about our database that we use. We use Agile Assets, and that holds all of our pavement conditions. We put all of our pathways data in there. We put all of our construction history. It also uses our STIP projects, so we're able to optimize our system based on STIP projects funding, construction history. We use deterioration curves based on the type of route it is. We have different ones set up for I-80 versus I-25 and I-90. And then different ones for non-interstate NHS and then non-NHS as well. A lot of it is dependent on bases as well. So we have our decision trees are based out by aggregate base versus CTB or PM base. So, and then we have our decision trees set up to incorporate different types of treatments. One thing that's a little different about Wyoming is that we don't necessarily, pavement management, we don't necessarily tell the districts what treatment they're going to do. We give them a category on which they have to do it. But then with that optimization, we are able to project up to 20 years. So we produce the pavement management system analysis report every year. This is the cover of 18's last year, and then here's our 20-year projections. So we're able to use the current funding that we have and kind of project out where we're going to be based on those deterioration curves and the decision trees that are being used in the optimization on projected construction projects. Also with Agile Assets, this shows our current projections, the conditions for excellent and good, and then poor and fair for each one of our systems. We break out, again, the interstate separate, then the non-interstate NHS and the non-NHS. As you guys probably know, all of our funding for federal funding, it's all on the NHS, so that's interstates and non-interstate NHS, and then state funding is basically the non-NHS. That bottom graph shows a lot more needs for dollars than the top part. For basic treatment definitions, so we use what's called the 1S, 2S, and 3S system. So this is what our Agile Asset system projects, and so it spits out basically those categories. And so a 1S is considered like that preventative rehabilitation, which includes like the microsurface chip seals, thin overlays, and then if you want to do just a wearing course over the top. 2S is a little more robust, about 2 to 3 inches on anything besides I-80. If it's on I-80, it's 2 to 4 inches. Hot in place and with a thin overlay or a chip seal over the top, and then isolated replacement or dowel bar retrofit for concrete. And then the 3S is more of a major rehabilitation. That is above 3 inches on anything besides I-80, and then over 4 inches on I-80. That also includes our FDR. And then just to touch base on some of the treatments that we're doing, we do a lot of patching on our maintenance crews. We do warm plant mix asphalt. We do FDRs with chip seals, microsurfacing. We did 2 hot in place recycle jobs last year. We did a cold in place recycle job last year also. Did 1 VRAM this year. That's the void reducing asphalt membrane job. We've done 2 volumetrics projects, and then we've got a couple others set up this year as well. And then we chip seal, just like Montana, we chip seal or put a wearing course on all of our projects across the state. And what that does for us is it's a very cold climate, so it produces that higher friction numbers, which is very nice. And we do a lot of crack seal also. A lot of the time we'll do like an overshoot on our chip seals, which is similar to like a fog seal over the top of the chip seal. Our pavement management system doesn't necessarily go into reconstruction, which is considered that 4S. We don't necessarily recommend those because in order to do that, you'd have to have full network level FWD across the entire state along with pavement thicknesses. And so in order to analyze that data, it'd be a lot more on our pavement management system at this point. We're looking into that traffic speed deflectometer, but getting the exact depths of pavement for each location is going to be our fallback on that. With our Agile asset system, it produces our candidate list, which is the optimization results. And so what we do is we maximize our budget to where it produces a bunch of different projects that could potentially be done based on our pavement management locations. So we've got in there, you can see the candidate projects. So you've got your candidate treatment here. So those are the ones that are being projected by our system. And then we have our STIP projects here, and those are the ones that are in our current STIP, which is a 6-year plan. We also show our PSR, which is our composite index. That includes your IRI, rutting, and cracking. And then on concrete, it includes the IRI and cracking. We are in the process of developing a new system that also includes faulting, because that's one of the big MAP 21 requirements as well. We're really close to launching that entire system, which is very nice. So we also produce that 7th year right here. You can see the PSR 7th year. And so you can see what it's going to look like in that out year for the STIP. So it helps our district engineers pick those projects correctly, because one of the biggest things I stress is doing the right treatment at the right time at the right location. And so if you are able to see what it's going to look like at that 7th year based on the deterioration curves, then they know and they have confidence that they're choosing those right locations. So here's some of our optimization results. This is broken out by district, because again, we produce this for our district engineers and they choose those projects. You can see on those graphs, it's broken out by system and then the 1S, 2S, and 3S categories. So they have a lot of leeway on what projects they can and can't do. We do more of a need-based type system, but you can see there's like the NHS, it's the 3 lines at the end. For each one of those districts, we're kind of hurting in those areas. Anytime we have some funding cuts, a lot of it comes off of that non-NHS system. And so I don't know if everyone else is experiencing a lot of that, but that's kind of our system that needs the most work at this point. We take all of that data that we've got and then we put it into these mileage requirements, and this goes through each district. We have it broken out by state funding and then also by interstate, non-interstate, NHS, and non-NHS. So these mileage requirements are sent to the districts every year, and in that STIP year, they need to meet these mileage goals on a rolling average, basically. Our executive staff is fully behind the preservation that we produce on this, and again, this is not including any of those capital projects, any of the widening, any mobility, anything for safety. This is just based on pavement preservation. So we use about $160 million a year for pavement preservation, and it's broken out by each of the districts based on funding. We look at truck ADT, we look at other ADTs, and total mileage per district. So that way we know that we're sending the correct amount of dollar amounts to each district every year. So that was all I had. Told you it was short and sweet. Does anyone have any questions?
I know a lot of the system in Wyoming, all the systems dependent on funding, but much of your funding mechanism comes through your mineral depletions and that type of allowance. Has the economy improved in Wyoming so that the DOT budget is, let's say, increasing with the needs of the state versus, I know it was held in check with no increases for quite a few years after we had a president who thought coal was a dirty thing. It did affect the state and the cost of all of our electricity. But how is the funding now with the DOT?
Funding stream has remained fairly consistent, even after a bunch of fallbacks, I guess, in the past few years. We've had the abandoned mines funding that ended, but one of the biggest things that our previous director did is he was able to get us off of the general fund for the state. And so that was one of the biggest things that kind of helped WDOT, and so we were able to do a 10-cent gas tax that kind of alleviated that general fund as well. So we're still in the process of trying to get as much funding as possible in order to hit a lot of those needs also across the state. But the biggest thing too is, when it comes to funding, it's that earmark funding and making sure that we're meeting those targets for MAP 21 that we've set up in our TAMP.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation.
More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.